Who have you perhaps looked up to as a leader? And how has that impacted what you've been doing over the last 5-10 years?
So I read a lot about different people and the businesses that they've grown. So I love what Elon Musk is doing, driven by a really clear purpose of making a difference to the world. I love the stuff that Richard Branson does. He injects a lot of fun and playfulness into the workplace. I find a lot of Tony Robbins stuff. I think he has some great ideas which he packages really well and makes it consumable for a lot of people. But I'm continually sort of reading books and taking things from different people that I meet. So this morning we're off to go and meet Sir Tim Schmitz, who founded the Eden Project, and he has some brilliant ideas around encouraging diversity in the workplace and getting different ideas coming through. So always looking for different people. You can take something from everyone, right?
If you take the challenges you had in growing the business and exiting, what are the things, perhaps the mistakes that you made that you recognise now looking back, that if other people were growing a business you would give them this advice? What would it be?
Okay, so the fundamental shift that I had to make after everybody threatened to leave the business, I realised that I had to do something very differently, and I went and got a coach. Her name's Margaret, absolutely incredible. She was the person who really turned things around for me, and she gave me this quote. It's an African proverb which you may have heard before, which is, if you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together. So the whole essence of that was around building an amazing team of people, taking your ego out of it. And the vision that I carry and encourage any business to do these days is to create the business that can run without you. Because that's the challenge that I had to do, because I had to create a business that could run without me, because I was going to be on a boat in the middle of the ocean, so there wasn't much that I could do. So that meant my ego literally had to leave the business and just create an amazing team of people and find people who are way better than I was. And the fundamental building blocks of creating a business that can run without you is having a really clear vision, where are we going, a really clear purpose, why are we doing this, how do we behave, how do we act, have amazing people, build on their strengths, and getting people doing the things that they really love doing. But the guiding principle, and the thing that I would encourage people to hold in their minds, is how can you create the business that runs without you? So just creating that structure so that you become redundant.
When you had perhaps difficult challenges and difficult times in your sailing adventure, especially with your children, can you share a story about perhaps one of those difficult moments, and how you woke up the next morning and pulled everyone together and focused on the drive? I'd love to hear, because I'm sure there was many challenges.
We had a few. And it's interesting, the things that we did to transform the businesses and the skills that we developed around that, around values, around being resourceful, were exactly the same skills that we needed to handle challenges when we were at sea. So one of the stories that I share is that we were deep in the South Pacific Ocean, 500 miles from the nearest bit of land, and we had complete power failure on the boat. Now, what does power failure on a boat mean? Let me give you a context. Remember the film Apollo 13? And you have the 3 astronauts up in the space shuttle up in space, and they had power failure. It was a little bit like that, apart from the fact that they had 3 astronauts, another 50 rocket scientists back at Cape Canaveral, and you have to sit there and figure out what you're going to do and how you're going to deal with that. So, when everything goes wrong, we had huge seas and waves breaking over the boat, really strong winds, and we had to figure out how do we deal with this. And the way that we dealt with it went right back to our values. So I remember back in my corporate days thinking that values are soft, fluffy things. They're nothing of the sort. Values are the things that define your behaviours. Behaviours are what drives your actions. Actions are what drives your outcomes. And what we did with our values is we talked about them. We agreed what the set of values were. We talked about what is it that we do when we live these values that they're very best. So we got concrete examples. And then we created a conversation around it every day. So we would hold values prizes over breakfast, and we would talk about what people were doing well and celebrating those good things. So with things like love, laugh, action, going prepared. So we were creating behaviours where those values became the instinctive things. So back in the situation in the boat in the middle of nowhere, what do? Do we turn around and blame each other, or do we just live our values?
Mhm.
So we found the humour in the situation. So we told the kids that we didn't have a working toilet. We sort of introduced them to the buckets. They were lining up on deck to get a toilet in the bucket and chuck it over the side. We found the humour in the situation. And then for the next 4 days, we just literally worked as a team, lived our values. And I would say we didn't survive, we thrived. It became one of our proudest moments working together as a team. But because we'd ingrained those values, they weren't just for the easy times, they were for the tough times. So, we hand steered the boat for the next 4 days, and Nicola and I, we would steer for half an hour at a time each. Kids would be downstairs, they'd bring us up cold beans and water up on deck and things like that.
Yeah.
And we worked together as a team to solve that problem. Whereas I think if I'd been back in my old corporate world, someone would have said, it's your fault, why haven't you done this, and turned to blame. But the fundamental thing was the values and embedding that.